So we're just going to give it a few minutes, let people trickle in. It's been a little while since I've been in StreamYard, so I see some of the buttons on the side that I'm itching to click, but I got to behave myself because all right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. My name is Rob Luther. I am the VP of Business Development at PIC, and I'm excited that you guys are here to join us on the panel where we're going to talk about topical authority. So we have a good hour lined up. Before I hand everything off to the team, let me do a couple introductions. Brad Gerlach, who is two boxes below me, is our VP of Operations and resident SEO guru. Brad's been building search strategies at PIC since 2015, and he's the architect behind much of the topical authority work that we do here every day. Ryan York is one of our SEO specialists. He lives in the weeds of SEO and organic work, so he's bringing that practitioner's perspective to everything that we talk about. And then Blaine is our VP of Marketing. He is the strategist behind how we apply the hero mission strategy to the content that we create and how that applies to topical authority. Blaine came to PIC with 30 years of B2B marketing experience, including some stints as CMO and senior marketing director at a few major brands. So together, this is the PIC team, and we've helped dozens of clients move from kind of scattered content that's just getting thrown out there and turning that into a true topically aligned strategy to improve the topical authority. And today we're going to share all that fun stuff with you. So the agenda today, of course, my notes aren't going. There's 5 sections that we're going to talk about today, and we'll move pretty quickly through them. What is topical authority in 2026? So we'll talk a little bit about that. How the AI era has changed the rules of search. Search is definitely different, a little bit different now than it was before. What our approach is to it, how the hero mission strategy is kind of built in as the foundation. I think it's especially effective for topical authority. We'll have a few examples for you. And then at the end, we're going to have an open Q&A, and we may throw a poll in there as well. So if you have any questions as we go through the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll wrap those up at the end. And then with that, Brad, kick us off with section 1.
All right. So I think section 1, we're going to be talking about there, what is topical authority. The quote here is the big thing. Being first on Google used to be enough. Now you have to be the most trusted. And that is the truth here, where it doesn't matter what platform you're on, whether it's Google search or any LLM, for their users to keep using them, they have to be trusted. Therefore, they want to provide all the most trusted content to their users. So this is a shift that seems new, but it's really not. Google's been working this way with their algorithm for some time now. So what we want to try to do is prove that topical authority, and we do that to these platforms so that we are trustworthy, and we're doing that with our content. Unfortunately, this is a shift that a lot of brands haven't quite made yet. And that's what we want to show you, why you want to do that now, especially in 2026 with all of the AI changes. So Topical authority, the classic definition used to be demonstrating depth and breadth on a subject so the search engines see you as the most credible source. That's accurate, but you're thinking from like 5 years ago. In 2026, the definition is much broader. It's about owning an entire topic ecosystem. You got to interconnect content. You have some trust authorship signals and consistent eat that the algorithms and the humans like, or I'm sorry, the algorithms like, and it provides the rewards for you. For anyone that's new to this, EAT stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. This is actually Google's quality framework. They've been using it in their algorithm for years now. And all these AI LLMs are adopting that because it's a great trust factor. If you're able to satisfy EAT, you are proving to everyone that you are trustworthy. And when you're doing this, when you can do this, this gives you a better chance that the AI platforms will surface and recommend your contact. And I do want to point out that it's recommend, because AI engines, they don't really rank pages. They're recommending the sources that they trust. So in a nutshell, topical authority is the proof that you just don't talk about the subject. You actually own the subject. And some common mistakes that I see, that we see here when we start working with new clients particularly, is that they have random acts of content, also known as publish and pray. They're putting out content that they think everyone likes. They may be doing some keyword research, have an idea what they want to rank. And the post may be great. It might be useful, but there's no, it's not connected to the rest of their thoughts or expertise in any way. There's no hub, there's no intentional linking around or anything that shows a broader sense of the topic. So without that topical depth, even a brilliant individual article becomes invisible. Algorithms are trained on authority patterns. They're scattered, and the scattered content just doesn't fit that pattern. I'm going to send this over to Ryan. You could talk about more about how this is all involved with the era of AI.
Yeah, so to kind of continue on that, so the rules of search have changed. Has the content strategy changed? I think that's a big question. I guess number one, do you even have a content strategy is always the first question. But how has your content strategy changed, or does it need to change? So I think that's something that every brand, every company, whether you're local service-based company, software, B2B, B2C, doesn't really matter. There are always things that you can be doing a little differently. So traditional SEO versus the AI authority model. So now I do want to preface too, like the traditional SEO things here, like I don't want to make it seem like these are no longer important. Like all of these things are still relevant. There's some other things to think about now. Kind of your mindset might shift in some ways. I mean, your strategy is going to shift in some ways. So don't, I guess, neglect, if you are tracking volumes and, keywords and things like that, don't stop doing that. But there are some other things to consider nowadays, especially if you're really focused on, showing up in ChatGPT or an AI overview or something like that. So in the past, we looked at a ton at keyword densities way back years ago now, but backlink volume, now that's kind of shifted to total topical depth, your authorship credibility. So whoever's creating your content or you as a brand, how credible do you appear with? Do you have social media ties to your website or your blog? Individual author names, and some industries that matters is super important. Healthcare, if you're in law, something like that. That stuff makes a really big difference there. But it's important for any industry, really. And then content clusters. So, your categories of content, making sure things are organized well. In the past, to the next one here, you kind of looked at, every post, you're looking at a keyword. And in some ways that's still true. But like Brad mentioned earlier, one great blog post still needs to be part of an entire strategy. So this content ecosystem thought, it's not just let me think of a topic and then I'll just write a blog post about it. When you're thinking of your content strategy, it should be interconnected. You should have your internal linking throughout each piece of content. The flow from content, from blog post to service page, all that stuff should be thought out. It should make sense to the user, and then obviously should make sense to either search engines or, ChatGPT or wherever it might be as well. So before you think Google ranks the page it's optimized the best. So you look at, do you have your keyword in a specific heading? Is it in a URL? Kind of a more simplified version. Now LLMs, like again, ChatGPT, et cetera, they're thinking about, what's the most trusted answer? I've actually been thinking a lot more of it recently. Like, it seems like LLMs are almost trying to answer all of the questions that you might ask, before you actually ask them. So when you go into ChatGPT and ask it a question, it might show you the answer to your first question, but it wants to make sure that whoever it's recommending has content for, 5 related topics that the user might ask after that. So you might ask for the best service provider in your area. But then do you have content supporting, cost, why you're the best, what separates you from other competitors, external reviews, all these different areas that ChatGPT might ask this user as a follow-up. If you don't have those good answers, you're probably not going to get cited or, sourced in the AI reply, or someone who does will get sourced there. And then traffic just is your basic success metric. So, traffic is obviously still important in some ways. But really now what you're looking at, are different trust signals, engagement, how often you're showing up in LLMs, obviously conversions, whatever that might be. So just traffic to have traffic is, like I said, you still want to have some traffic, obviously, but there's more to consider now. And then our little thought at the bottom here. So AI engines don't rank pages. They recommend sources they've learned to trust. And that's kind of what I've been thinking more and more about in terms of, making sure you've got answers to a variety of questions that a user might ask this ChatGPT session, as the LLM walks them through the conversation. So you kind of need that content in an organized way, because the LLM's already looking at it. The user might not know it yet, but it's going to prompt them to look at all these different pages and consider all these different things. So you want to make sure you've got that content in place, whether that's the user's first question or not. So how Google and LLMs evaluate your authority. There's a lot that goes into this. Kind of 3 basic buckets here. So your topical coverage is kind of what I was just talking about. Do you have answers to lots of different questions on your site? Whether it's cost or how to use it, or features, or differences between you and a competitor. As many, whether there's a bunch of search volume in an SEO tool or whatever, you should be thinking more about the user, or in Pick's case, a hero. What questions might they ask? The more you can answer there, the more likely you are to get cited, I think. And then, so your authority signals. So these could be on-site or off-site. Obviously your on-site would be your review, like testimonials on your site, things like that. But offsite signals have become even more important. I mean, people used to consider backlinks, which was like the main one, but so often, ChatGPT, the other LLMs, they cite things like Reddit. Now I see Facebook groups a lot more often. Really anywhere where there's like real people having a conversation, you want to try and get in there, go in there and mention, you don't have to mention your brand directly, but, being a part of that discussion, having your brand mentioned alongside of, your services or what you do, whatever it might be. But the more visibility you have off of your site in those places where people are having real communication, is a big lift in any LLM reply now. And then the content interconnection. So again, making sure your content is actually organized, with internal links, an easy to follow categories throughout your site, even having your content categorized at all. So making it obviously easy for the user to go in, and when they land on a blog page, can they easily find other content related to that blog, or easily get to a service page? It's all that stuff connected in an easy way. Just that organization also helps, like ChatGPT, organize and understand the content on your site. When someone's asking it a question, can it easily find all these other answers? So to kind of sum all of that up, I think, it's not just like more and more and more content. I mean, more content can be good, but I think it is making sure your content aligns with what people are saying about your brand off of your website, and making sure that aligns with your own content. I think that's how LLMs, even Google, but like in an AI overview, I think that's how they really understand and come to trust your brand. So I think that's the big goal, is kind of aligning all of that stuff together. And that's what Blaine's going to kind of talk about next.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So one of the things that sets Pick apart from other agencies is our trademarked hero mission strategy, which was developed by our own in-house marketing genius, Rob Luther. Pick clients that follow our hero mission strategy have entered the AI search era well prepared, because they already know that authority starts with knowing your hero. Not a tagline, it's the operating principle behind everything we build at Pick. And so when we work with clients on their content strategy, the first thing we ask is not what keywords do you want to rank for? It's who are we actually trying to help? What are they trying to accomplish? And those are very different starting questions, and therefore they lead to very different content. The hero mission strategy is the strategic framework, again, that we use to build content authority. And there are three primary components as shown here. So the hero is your ideal customer, the person, not the company. Defined not just by demographics, but really by their goals, motivations, and challenges or friction or hurdles they may encounter along the way. And content authority really starts here. And you can't be authoritative on a topic in the abstract. You have to be authoritative for a real person on a real mission. And so when we define the hero precisely, every content decision that we make after that becomes a lot clearer. The mission is the outcome that your hero is working toward. We map content clusters to specific mission stages: awareness, evaluation, decision, so that every piece of content has a place within that ecosystem. There's no publish and pray, as Ryan talked about. More content isn't necessarily better. There's an intentional placement. And then we get to the story. That's the mechanism through which we establish your brand as the trusted guide. And this is where topical clusters, hub pages, strategic internal linking really create the narrative that the hero AI search engines recognize as authoritative. You're not just producing content. Again, you're building a story that demonstrates that you understand the journey better than anyone else. And so we build that really through, in general, a 5-step process. First off, step 1, define the hero. We do workshops and customer research to build precise hero profiles, including those mission stages and the friction points. Not, again, a persona exercise that very commonly is done once and filed away and forgotten about. The heroes and missions are things that we keep in front of you all the time and continuously refine and refer to. And it drives every downstream decision from there. Step 2, map the mission topics. We work to identify ideally every question that your hero will ask at each stage of the journey. And this becomes the topical coverage blueprint that enables us to identify or surface content gaps that you don't know you have. Step 3, build a hub. We create a pillar page for each core topic, supported by cluster articles that link back intentionally. The hub page is the anchor. The clusters add depth to it. And the internal links create the architecture that really helps to signal and build that authority. Step 4, synchronize channels. We continue to build through webinars, blogs, social, email, all feeding to that same authority hub. And the compounding effect of that is really what we're after. It's a massive impact. Every touch point reinforces the same topical signal, and your authority score continues to grow across multiple channels simultaneously. And this is done well. And finally, step 5, measure and expand. We track EEAT signals, organic traffic, AI citation frequency. And then again, we continue to look for gaps and just fill those gaps in, deepen the coverage. And it's an ongoing process. Again, authority is built, not launched, is the key here. And so with all of that, I'll now kick it back to our SEO experts, Brad and Ryan, and let them show you how this looks actually in practice.
So, okay, you want to start, Ryan?
Yeah. So what we put together, one is just kind of an outcome, and then the second slide kind of discusses just some behavior that we're seeing, that is kind of a shift as a result of AI traffic, and it's just things like that we kind of look for. I mean, all this stuff is new, so there's so many theories and things like that. So we'll touch on that a little bit. But so this first one, we wanted to give an example of, it's probably something a lot of businesses, are dealing with. So we had a client that year over year, their traffic was down like quite a bit, like 30% for, a lot of their blog content, and it was a higher volume of traffic. They were generating a lot of traffic, so it was a bigger number of sessions. And then, like I said, the losses were mostly in like more of the top of funnel informational blog content, which is pretty consistent with what we see, when it comes to like zero click search, if you've heard of that, where, a user can get their answer right in an AI overview or somewhere else where, they're not having to now click through to your site to get the answer. They can get it right there on the search result. So obviously you don't want to see that loss, but at the same time, it's like, okay, it makes sense. So you can kind of deal with it and figure it out.
Yeah, we're also on, I want to interject there. We're also on a paradigm change too, right? People aren't going to Google and search engines like they were for that awareness and to learn. They're doing a lot of that on platform, on ChatGPT, asking the questions before they even arrive to your website. They already know the answers to their questions. Now they're at that next stage, that consideration stage, where they're actually starting to evaluate different services, different products. So a lot of that research is being done on platform or those zero-click searches before they come onto your site.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that kind of builds into the next point here. So the informational volume. So it's like, do you just want to stop making this informational content? I think the answer is no. I think it kind of touches on it has to do with what I touched on earlier about you got to kind of think down the line. What would be the next question that ChatGPT might ask, or that an AI overview might, recommend the next stage of content that would be there. So I think that's where you really need to consider what's after that. It's like, okay, so you lose the click maybe on this informational topic. So what we did, we looked at, where does their actual hero go next? I guess first of all, was it the right hero? Was it the right person? Assuming yes. So we built more of these topical clusters around their actual hero, what they wanted to buy. We built tools. They had some they were related content, but like awareness content that was loosely related, and some of that stuff you kind of just let decay at this point or get rid of it. And then we really focused on the decision stage content, like Brad was just saying. So the outcome ended up being, traffic never really bounced back on some of those blog posts that lost traffic, but they actually ended up increasing their conversions about the same, like 20 to 30%. So I think to tie it together, like Brad said, I would not recommend eliminating, just because you think, oh, this is probably a 0-click search or something, so you're not going to make this top of funnel content. That all goes back to, you're building your trust with the search engine or with ChatGPT. But then also, making sure you've got content for every possible or as many questions after that as you can think of, whether it's a tool to help them decide or a comparison post. Really just thinking about what your hero needs to make a buying decision after that initial piece of content. Any other thoughts on that, Brad?
No, I think you kind of put it out directly, because the idea there is, like you said, while we saw the clicks decrease or the sessions decrease, we did see increase in conversions. So that's showing you that you're at least getting the right content or the right users to your site. So don't worry about the clicks and the traffic as much. As hard it is to say, and as hard it is for any marketing person to actually see that decrease, we actually want to worry about what's happening after the click, right? After they land on the website, that's where you make your money. That's where you get the conversions from. So if you do see this, if you see a decrease in traffic to your site, make sure you're looking at the conversions and the conversion rates to see if that traffic's converting more often.
So the next one, this one was a little more fun because it's kind of more of a hypothesis, I guess. But so I've been seeing a lot more, when you're considering someone's buyer journey from specifically like an LLM, like someone goes to ChatGPT and they're doing their discussion, like how do they get to your website? Do they go right there through the LLM? Do they go back to Google? So we were looking at a client that had a good amount of content. It was a successful client. They had a good amount of content. They had a lot of traffic. They converted well. They were appearing in some different, ChatGPT, different LLMs. And we noticed that a lot of they were receiving, like when you're looking year over year, a lot of queries that were like their brand plus a service keyword, or a brand plus a specific product offering that they had, where they didn't really have that combination in the previous year. So what we're kind of seeing here is that, like Brad was talking about, the user will go to ChatGPT or whatever LLM and have a discussion, and then they go possibly to Google and they search. Okay, like, so I found my recommendation from the AI. Now they go to Google and they search for that brand plus whatever product, service, et cetera, that the AI is recommending. So what that would mean is that, that branded search, and although it's branded, and, obviously it could be coming from, some other source if you've got, billboard advertising or something like that too. But, we're kind of looking at that now as a possible AI visibility metric. You know, if are people learning more about your brand through AI and then going to Google and learning even more about you? And then that's kind of where, again, those external recommendations of you come into play, because when obviously you're going to show up at the top, but that's where you're also going to see, you know, if there are sites that are reviewing you or you're included in a listicle or something like that, that's where you're going to pop up, you know. So the more of those kind of reinforcing reviews or messages that, you know, you might be on another site or on Reddit or Facebook or whatever, you know, that just builds your case even more there.
I found that when you first mentioned this, that I found that this is a interesting pattern that we're seeing, because a lot of those brand terms plus services or plus product are new too, year over year. They weren't there a year ago.
Right.
So some of the big things, just think about what the big changes have been in search and SEO. It's been AI. It's been AI overviews, zero click searches. It's hard for me not to connect the dots back to AI and AEO, because otherwise people would have been searching for these terms previously.
Yeah, and to step back, so when I say I found these terms or we found these terms, so this would all be in like Google Search Console, so free tool that, you know, anyone can set up and track. You know, so those are the queries that where we're seeing these queries is in Google Search Console. And then so to touch on some of these questions quickly here. So, you know, if we're considering the LLM as like the new top of the funnel, so like I said before, should you just not have top of funnel content? I think the answer is no. But I do think you need to then reconsider, you know, how do they get from there, and then where do they go? You know, so to go back to the Google search result, you know, if they type your brand plus product, you know, the more pages or more content you have that directly relates to that. So you might obviously have the product page itself, but then that might be an opportunity to have, you know, if you've got a cost breakdown page or a how you compare to a competitor, or you know, why your product is better than X product, you know, those different things will show up there as well. So it's just, again, it's more opportunities where you could have the person land on exactly the page that they need to land on.
One thing I would also like to say about that top of funnel content, it's also important to be found, right? So that LLMs and Google knows that you're there. We know that ChatGPT and LLMs will search Google to find the content. So if you're not ranking, they're not going to discover you too. So I think still trying to rank well for the top of funnel is good, because it's going to get you in those overviews and at least allow AI to know who you are and what you're about. I did want to go back to the last one. It also talking about, does this change on what we write about, or how, I was going to say how we write about things. The one big thing that we want to do, and when we're thinking about writing, is also from our own perspective too. We're seeing more and more gone are the days of where everybody can write about the same thing. The boilerplate content, if you will, which kind of goes to the top of funnel. But what LLMs and even Google's algorithm is looking for is that unique perspective that you can provide, that only you can provide. And that's how you're being helpful. It's still one of the best things you can do, and this has been true before AI started, is to create helpful and resourceful content. If your content is just rehashing the same thing that everybody else can and has, it's not going to do you any good. You're not going to have that eat, and you're not going to be suggested or recommended in LLMs.
I think also when you're talking about topic authority, it's not just your topic. You got to think it's really the topic of your customer. Like that's the topic that you want to conquer. It's the topic that your customer's trying to learn, because they may start planning before they're even thinking about a product and just trying. Like I garden, so I'll start searching just for garden layout. Like I'm not even thinking about what seed I'm going to buy or anything like that. So just think about the whole mission that your hero is trying to accomplish, and what content can you create at the top of the funnel to become a resource. All right, so this is your webinar 2. We're going to go into our live Q&A. Let's see, what do we have here? Random acts of content. This is your. Wait, are we doing that? Yeah, this is the question. This is the self-assessment question. Sorry, I got lost in my PowerPoint. Okay. So think about your situation, your content strategy, and how are you approaching your current content strategy? Is it A, random acts of content, you're just publishing when you can? Is it B, are you using keywords when you're doing your content strategy and really trying to focus in on terms, but you don't really have a strategy other than that? It's just I want to rank for this term. Are you C, are you actually building clusters that have a structure, but maybe it's not as integrated as it could be? Or D, do you have the whole kit and caboodle, and are you really strong in your content approach right now? So think about that. If you want to throw it in the chat and let us know where you think you are, that'd be great. But this is just kind of a way to think about your content strategy and think about where you are. We all really want to try and work toward that D level, but I know sometimes it's not as easy as it sounds.
And I think another thing on that is, like, not everyone's going to be able to post content like every day, so I think it's important to assess honestly, how much content, if you can only do a certain amount of content, like that's how you need to build your strategy. You can't, someone who posts, once every other week is not going to have the same strategy as someone who is posting every day. And then obviously where you're posting, whether it's blog, social media, or whatever, but I think it is really important to honestly assess how often are we going to be able to post content before you actually start building your strategy.
Yeah, and hopefully everything that we talked about today is really going to set everybody up for success to move down that line toward the D column. All right, so Q&A. Oh, did I go too far? So we have some questions queued up, but again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. So the first question I'll ask Brad: can Topical Authority work for niche B2B markets with small search volumes?
Absolutely, and I would argue that kind of the best for the niche ones that don't have the higher competitiveness. You have a better chance, or I don't want to say easier chance, but a good chance of being that expert, right? Usually if you're niche, you don't have as much competition. And also from small search volumes, a lot of people target large search volumes. So if you're targeting the lower search volumes, sometimes you're getting away from the competitors that are targeting other keywords. So I personally love the small search volume keywords. If you're using a tool like SEMrush or SE Rankings or so, zero volume keywords are one of my favorite ones to go for, because a lot of people pass those up. They can be newer emerging keywords, or they're just keywords that those tools don't have enough information about.
All right. As far as authority signals go, what are authority signals? How long before we start seeing them, and what should we start measuring first, Ryan?
Yeah. So again, I think those would be, obviously they're your mentions in all the different AI platforms. And I think a lot of those come from all over the place. It's pulling signals from, like I've been saying, Reddit, Facebook, but depending on your industry, it could be like TripAdvisor, your own Google business profile, even your own website. So it pulls it from everywhere. But that's why I say visibility, number one, like being on all these different platforms is so important. And then obviously making sure you're being spoken about positively, but also in a way that aligns with like what you want to be, what you want to be sourced as, making sure so many times, like, well, you can just ask ChatGPT, like, here's my brand. Like, what do you know about my brand? And we've seen it for a client where it's like, well, that's not really what I want to be known for, and then you have to determine why is that, but so it's pulling that information from all over the place. So it's important to make sure you're aligned there. And then what do you measure first? Oh, that's tough to say. I would, again, just go into the LLM yourself, and, there's obviously a lot of software and things like that you could use, but just go into the LLM and have a conversation with it and, see where you're showing up, or when it's recommending you, see how it thinks about your brand, and start there. And then, down the road, there are free tools like Bing. Bing does offer like some free AI, AI measurement tools that you can use in Bing for free. But that's where I would start. I would just have a conversation with AI and see who it's ranking, see who it thinks your competitors are, and see what it thinks about you.
All right, Brad, what about optimizing for AI? Different than Google?
Yes and no. Traditional SEO is not dead. Like I said before, we know that the LLMs will search Google to find some of their information. So if you don't rank, there's a chance that the LLMs don't find you. But there are certain things that you want to do that's more for AI search than for Google. Ryan's mentioned Reddit a number of times. Having just mentions, before it's always been backlinks. Now mentions are a big thing, or a bigger thing. So you don't necessarily need that link. You just want to see your brand or your product being mentioned. That's getting a little more for Google, but it's really big for LLMs. Some other signals we have found for some clients are even directory listings. So we used to do citations in directory listings for our local clients because that was the local algorithm that really ate that up. Now we're finding that all of our clients, you want them to be there, because the idea before with Google was a local company, a legit local company is going to be in directories, and their name, their address, their phone number would be consistent. It seems that AI is taking that as well and saying, hey, this is a way that we know that this company is legit because they have all these listings. Ryan, anything else I'm missing there?
I think like a simplified approach is like, I mentioned Reddit a lot because I love Reddit right now, but maybe that's different in a year, or maybe it lasts 5 years where AI loves Reddit. I don't know. But I think the key to think about is you got to be where like real people are having conversations. Like it was Reddit, and maybe that'll get abused to the point of they don't use Reddit as much anymore, but then it'll be somewhere else. Like Facebook groups are kind of up and coming in the same way. So I think it's more a matter of just like, being aware that you need to be considering content that's not just on your website, wherever real people are having discussions, and, your business or your brand, or if your brand's not big enough to be mentioned yet, but your services or whatever you do, wherever people are talking about that stuff, like you just need to go there and talk to those people, and, maybe you naturally slide your brand in there. But, wherever real people are talking.
Yeah, think about industry forums. Cores like Reddit, give you there. Industry forums that aren't gated, that are kind of public. They're a great place to be as well. So if you're answering questions and helping people there, but regardless when you do it, wherever it is, you want it to be natural. You don't want to be coming there and just self-promoting. You want to be helpful. Your content off your site needs to be helpful, just like your content on your site needs to be helpful.
All right, if you're a marketing team starting from zero or a business owner starting from zero, Blaine, what's the first thing that should be built?
Define your hero. And Ryan mentioned real people multiple times. Ultimately, we want those real people to be your heroes. So if you know who your hero is and what your hero is trying to accomplish, everything else, your content, hub structure, everything else flows from knowing exactly who you're serving and what you're trying to accomplish. So, and then from there, you can build content topics, content calendar, but ultimately you need to know who those real people are for your business. So do that first.
And then as far as making a business case for long-term topic authority investment, I would say I'm going to go back to what Ryan said earlier about going into the LLM, go into ChatGPT and start asking questions. But remember, it's not as much your topic as it is your hero's topic. So when you're doing that, engage with the LLM as if you are your customer doing research. See how you're showing up in there. See how your competitors are showing up in there. And present that. That's your business case. But I've been in marketing, for 20 plus years, and you have really old school business owners who still just are. I need to rank number one in Google. I need to rank number one in Google. We're at that place now with LLMs where it's like it's becoming uber important, super important to position yourself well so that you are that topical authority within the LLMs, and they're actually using you for information because you're the one that understands what your customer's trying to go through, what are their friction points, what are their pain points, and you're providing valuable information to help them be successful. So formulate that. That is your business case.
And if you don't do it, your competitor will.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. All right. So 3 takeaways today. Am I doing this slide? 3 takeaways today. Authority over traffic. Like we've seen traffic decline, but conversions go up. So not that you don't want to be concerned about traffic, but we're definitely seeing traffic go down. Hero first. Always know who your customer is, know what their struggles are, know what the mission is that they're trying to accomplish, know what success looks like for your hero. And then systems beat posts. Build out your content systems around those topic clusters and become an expert. One great post equals a great blog post. So if it's standing alone, it's just a lone blog post out there in the ether with nothing to back it up. Make sure it's supported by other content and pages. And that's it. That's all we got today. Any closing thoughts from the team?
Go and make great content.
Yeah,
make
I
sure
think my big one is
it's in a cluster.
Yeah, I think my big one is get your brand out there. Obviously make great content on your site, but go talk to LLMs, go talk to people on Reddit, go talk to people on Facebook, find these different places and go talk to them.
Perfect. All right, that's it. Everybody have a good day, and we'll see you at our next webinar.